Right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining, and I'm glad you've had the success of being able to join. We've perhaps had a few problems with that. Um, First of all, just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country, the land. Most of us here in the Southern Sydney branch are in the Dharawal group, the Dharawal speaking people. But wherever you're at, Lydia, what's your group? Or whatever. Uh,
Pichigo.
Vidigal. Yes. Well, we acknowledge thank you for that. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, their elders, past, present, and emerging, and the land has never been ceded. Yeah. And appreciate how they used to look after the country. Tonight, we've got the pleasure once again of David Noble presenting. David's going to tell us almost the story of two rivers and two valleys, Wolli Creek and Cooks River, including bird life, mammals, and history. The write-up says the Cooks River has been described as the most polluted river in New South Wales, but in recent years it has been much improved with fish and mangroves returning and provides a home to a lot of bird life. Wolli Creek, the major tributary of the Cooks River, is surrounded by a thin strip of native bushland that is now largely protected by the Wolli Creek Regional Park. Both of these valleys would have had much different outcomes if it wasn't for the efforts of voluntary organisations. In this presentation, we will showcase what each valley offers. And of course, if you catch the train and look out on the western side as you cross between Wolli Creek and Tempe, you will see the confluence of Wolli Creek and Cooks River. So with that, David, take us away with your lovely photographs.
Okay, I'll start then. I'm just going share screen. Just one thing, Brian, you might want to just send that link to Roger if you said Roger was going to look in. I'm just going to share screen. So
Sorry, to who, Dave?
Roger Lembert, if you mentioned him, or is
Yeah,
he
I
going to?
did, and I have.
Okay, great. Um,
And
right, I'll just.
you have an ex-president of the Wolli Creek Preservation Society coming in right this minute.
Okay. Now, could you see my screen there? That's the
Yep,
wrong one. What's that?
we could then.
Yep.
Oh, we got that. Yeah.
This
So
is the
just
right start screen here. So the two
maximise that.
valleys.
All right.
Hopefully everybody can see the two valleys on their screen and not me now.
And we'll get other people just to perhaps turn their audio off and turn their video off.
Now, I'll talk for about 45, 50 minutes, see how it goes. And then there'll be time for questions. I can't see the chat window or the question window while I'm showing, so please save questions for the end. The two valleys are the Cooks River and Wolli Creek, two major waterways in the southern part of Sydney. Now, there's a sign somewhere in the valley there, and you can see the two valleys almost on it with that butcher bird taking off there. So it's a recognised thing, and on the signage along the Wolli Creek and along the Cooks River for the lower part of the Cooks River. If we look at an aerial photo or satellite photo of southern parts of Sydney, you can see the Cooks River snake its way there through the industrial landscape earlier, high up, and then through the housing landscape lower down, and then past the airport and into Botany Bay. And you can see a major tributary coming in on the south. That's Wolli Creek there, that big green area. These are important bushland remnants, the Wolli Creek, a bit like the Lane Cove River is a bushland remnant up in the northern part of Sydney. So there's Wolli Creek. They're quite green, which indicates trees on the satellite view. If you look at a bit further down, there's a big tributary coming in to about the middle of that photo, and that is Barnwell Creek or Barnwell Valley Creek or something. And that green area up there has got all the characteristics of a golf course, which is another land use that's been used here. So Wolli Creek there, But we're first going to have a look at the Cooks River, which is not natural now. It's changed a lot. It's a lot of green along it, but it's all the green is parks, recreation parks, golf courses. Here's the official map of the Two Valleys Trail. I'm not sure who put this out, whether it was the Cooks River Valley Association or Canterbury Council, perhaps at the time. And you can see some of the designations there: Canterbury Racecourse, Marrickville Golf Course, going down Gough Whitlam Park, Temporary Recreation Reserve, and then all along Wolli Creek, it's now the Wolli Creek Recreation Park. Now, here's an early morning shot of the Cooks River, and you might notice that structure there in the middle, which is fairly new. That structure is a wharf pontoon type thing for people to put their canoes in. Now, when I first moved into this area in the early 1990s, nobody took canoes on Cooks River, but now it's a lot more popular, especially with structures like this to assist getting in and out. Now, I mentioned the river as being a bit sick. And here's a video here, which has been viewed 2.1 million times. It's been on YouTube for 3 years. It's about this kayaker. I think he comes from Melbourne, and he does videos on some of the rivers, particularly the bad ones, I think. And the area is very high up, and you can see there are some challenges there. And obviously, a lot of sporting fields. And that rubbish is a bit of a problem as you go down the river. Now, for our journey, we're going to start just below the Canterbury Golf Course, and I've circled a few things here. The circle slightly on the left side is what's called the Sugar Mill. On the right, that big oval there is the boat harbour. Just below that, that line is a boom. We'll see photos of that. And the bottom left is another junction there. That's where Cup and Saucer Creek comes in. So this is where we're starting. And there's the Sugar Mill there. Very famous old building. It's now repurposed to housing, and with a few buildings around the outside. The buildings that have been built around the outside are sympathetic with that. That's the same sort of height and similar style sort of architecture, though obviously not the same building materials. So it's called the Sugar Mill, but sugar was never milled there. It was really a sugar works. 1842 was when it was finished. The site was bad for transport. There were no railways then, no good roads, but it was good for water. So the Cooks River was dammed nearby, and that water was used in the industrial processes. The sugar mill didn't last that long because it became cheaper to move closer to Sydney. So it later became an engineering works, then a wool scourer, and a bacon factory. It was Hutton's Bacon Factory, I think. Those last two things are not conducive to pure river. They led to a lot of nasty stuff going into the river for wool scouring and treating bacon. And there were also on the other side of the river nearby tanneries and things. So not good for the health of the river. So it's now converted to housing. So that's a major landmark, something worth looking for along the river. And just 100 metres or so downstream is this indentation here, strange indentation. What the hell is this? And I heard it was called the Boat Harbour, but I didn't know much about it. But then reading the history of it, it was constructed pretty recently, 1964, and it was called the Trading Ship Shropshire. And that means it was used as a naval cadet base. And the naval cadets would take their little boats in there and sail around, but it silted up and was useless by the mid-1970s. So it wasn't a very useful feature at all, just interesting. But it's now used for a lot of birds congregate around there. Now, you can see it down there. You can see that rubbish boom that's designed to collect floating bottles and other rubbish coming down the river. And a lot of rubbish does come down the river, particularly when the river's in flood. And those rubbish, that's one of three, at least three rubbish booms across the river there. And they're pretty important for for collecting that rubbish. And that rubbish is collected periodically by council. At the boat harbour there, you can see, if you look carefully, there's a fence on the boundary on this side. And that's to create a little area there, a little refuge for birds. And that's used a lot by birds. There's a couple there I can just see. But pelicans congregate there. They also land and sit on that boom as well. And on that post on the right, you can see two, looks like gulls there on the post on the right. Looking upstream at this point, you can see the river here. On the right is a concrete lined bank. On the left, the bank has been naturalised. So concrete has been taken away and boulders and things have been put in. And that's been really good because it allows the lizards to live in amongst those boulders there. And it also allows the animals like turtles and things to climb out and lay their eggs and stuff and to move into the wetlands. Where that bird is flying on the left, and that's the entrance where Cup and Saucer Creek comes in. So this is the furthest upstream we're going. Cup and Saucer Creek, there's really a concrete lined ditch these days, but it does have this feature down the bottom here, Cup and Saucer Wetlands, which are 3 ponds. So the water is dammed in Cup and Saucer Creek, flows into the first pond, goes into the second pond, goes into the third pond, and then returned to Cup and Saucer Creek. And a lot of the nasty things from urban runoff are taken out of the creek. There's really no industries up there anymore. It's more just housing in Cup and Saucer Creek. And here's this famous photo from 1901 showing Cup and Saucer Creek and a waterfall. And now it's just a concrete channel. So the wetland there, it says, was constructed in 2010. Now, going downstream, that red circle there, that red circle is that floating boom canoe place where you can put your canoes and kayaks in. And that red line there, that shows the original course of the Cooks River. And to get rid of swamplands and make golf courses, it was dredged and the bed was cut off there to reduce flooding and things. That was the design anyway, back in the, I'm not sure, 1930s or 40s or something, when that took place. Now, there's a nice new footbridge on the left-hand side that goes across to that park, Ewan Park, and on the right is a major road bridge, which is Wardell Road, and bottom there is a sporting field. So the top is a golf course now. And there's the extent of the golf course there. That's the next windy part of the river. And Wardell Road goes across towards the top there. And the 18-hole golf course, the American golf course, goes right along a fair section of the river. Of course, there's talk that when Albanese invites Trump to come over to visit Australia, they'll go down there for a round of golf. Yeah, maybe. Down at the very end of the golf course there, just in the bottom right, is another reserve called H.J. Marnie Reserve, which I refer to next. So the golf course land was originally the Moore estate, then Wardell bought the land. Wardell was an early judge, Dr. Wardell. He had the Petersham estate, which went right from really Parramatta Road all the way down to the Cooks River, this Petersham estate. 1834, Robert Wardell was chasing an escaped convict on his horse when the convict pulled a gun out and shot him. So not so good for Wardell, but the Wardell Road has since been named after him. 1870s, Wrench and Little bought the land. Now, the name Wrench you might have heard in terms of land and property developers, real estate agents, in the form of Richardson and Wrench, that company which still is going, Richardson and Wrench, or still going now. Incidentally, Wrench once owned the Euroka clearing in the Glenbrook section of Blue Mountains National Park. The bottom part of this big estate became the Riverside Estate, which they subdivided up. A lot of streets there, they subdivided that. And then the council bought part of it much later, which is called Riverside Park. Then there were all these battles in the council. There was a pro-golf course segment of the council, Marrickville Council there, and there's all these battles, rescission motions. A lot of aldermen claimed that you shouldn't be able to, there was a council regulation that you couldn't play sport on a Sunday, so the golf course would be unavailable for a lot of the time. And that was voted on and counted. So the golf course is now open. It's still current lease there. So it's mainly council land with provisos that a lot of the public can generally walk through, as long as you be careful of golf courses. So it's still used by people walking through. Albo used to walk his dog through the golf course quite often, apparently. And just another, this curious thing, the H.J. Barney Reserve. One of the councillors that opposed the golf course was a very active councillor called Bean Marnie. And Bean moved these motions to get rid of the golf course and turn it back to park. And the rest of the council didn't like that. And there were various elections there. The pro-golfing people won the elections. And when Bean Marnie retired, as you may know, that a lot of council reserve are named after councillors, mayors, things like that, if you look around the origin of these names. But the council decided to name this new reserve just past the golf course after Bean Marnie's brother, Harold Joseph Marnie, who'd come back with a medal from the war, the Second World War, apparently. But unfortunately, Marnie's not spelt that way. There's no E in it. So not very good history there. Going down to the next big feature in the Cooks River is Gough Whitlam Park. Now, Gough Whitlam Park is another big natural area. Well, not really natural, I guess. It's sort of a bit natural now, but originally it would have been maybe market gardens or something. But now it's sporting fields, open parkland, picnic areas, and a newly restored kiosk there which sells good coffee. In the middle of the Gough Whitlam Park, there's what's called the Billabong there, which has an island on it. And an island is a useful thing if you're a bird and you want to put a nest somewhere on the ground and you don't want foxes and cats getting your eggs or chicks. So that island there is quite a useful thing. All these sections of the Cooks River, all the way up to Canterbury Racecourse, are tidal, but they weren't not once. They once weren't. Near that Gough Whitlam Park is an Aboriginal site. I've never been there, and I got this photo online. It's an Aboriginal cave. It's actually on private land, but it is heritage listed, so it should never be developed. And it's got about 30 hand stencils like this and feet stencils as well. So just going downstream a little bit more, this is where Wolli Creek enters, and Wolli Creek is the biggest of all the tributaries of the Cooks River. That round thing there is a velodrome. You can almost see Lydia's place there, but not quite. That's Waterworth Park there. Waterworth Park is named after, not after the water and how worthwhile it is, but it is named after a councillor. That bottom circle there, that's Fatima Island. And that was one of 3 artificial islands that were created by dredging for recreation purposes, for people to take their rowboats, have a picnic there, and only one of them remains. And that's very, very dubious now too. It's very tidal. Low tide, there's a lot of birds on it. High tide, you just see a few mangroves sticking out. Now, on the bottom right there is the Princess Highway bridge and a walking bridge next to it. That was the site of a dam back in the very early days of the Cooks River. That dam flooded the river up a long, long way, probably almost up to the sugar mill. And the river would have been quite different in those days. And one of the consequences was, without that tidal flow, any mangroves on the river died. So all the mangroves that are there now have come back since the dam was taken down and replaced with a road bridge across that part of the Cooks River. Up on the upper right there's an arrow coming in, which is one of these concrete line ditches. Now, that concrete line ditch there actually goes up to a big swampy area, which is up very close to where the metro stabling facility is, north of Sydenham Station. And that was an area called the Gumbaramora Swamp. And that name has come into vogue a little bit at Sydenham Station on the footbridge, on the road bridge across there now. There's something about the Gumbaramora Swamp sort of stenciled on that bridge. The Gumbaramora Swamp was had a bad history back in the late 1800s when a housing estate called the Tramvale Estate was set up in the area there, because back in those days, the property developers would sell land on, swampy, flood-affected areas, and a few years later, all these houses that were built there all got flooded out and were just had to be knocked down, basically. Since that time, a huge big pit has been excavated there, which stores up all the floodwaters. So that's up, pretty close to the Marrickville Metro and the Metro Stable. Going downstream a bit more, we've got that velodrome on the left there and Fatima Island. The next circle after Fatima Island is near Wolli Creek Station, but that's actually the original Tempe house, one of the earliest estates of the area. And that Tempe house is still there. Beautiful preserved parklands around it. Well worth seeing if you've got a few minutes from Wolli Creek Station, just between Wolli Creek Station and the Princess Highway there. The person who owned the Vale of Tempe there, he used to have a boat service that took people to visit him across the river, and that was run by an ex-convict called Wolli the Boatman. The Wolli the Boatman's name has come up because one of the local breweries around Marrickville is Wolli the Boatman now, named after that transport person. Now, downstream, the big circle there is the Tempe Reserve, and hidden away above the Tempe Reserve there, sort of towards the top right, is the Tempe Wetlands. And again, that is like the Cup and Saucer Creek wetlands, 3 ponds that are designed to purify stormwater. Now, most of that stormwater comes down from the IKEA car park area. And that other stream coming in on the right there is the Alexandria Canal. And the Alexandria Canal joins the Cooks River here. But originally, the Cooks River used to cut across Tempe Reserve and across through the airport there. But all that section there, that big U, was just dredged out when the airport was expanded, because they changed the course of the river, and it flows into quite a different part of Botany Bay now. So that part of the Cooks River has changed a lot. There's a nice view of the Cooks River there. You can see the bank on the left there has like a little steel section there. That's to protect the bank from erosion and tidal flows and stuff. And there are little ladders along that in case people fall in, they can climb out. On the right are mangroves, and all those mangroves have come back in sort of the last 50 or 60 years. The organisation is the Cooks River Valley organisation here. Some of the subgroups under its auspices are the mud crabs, which look after bush care and plantings, and also do organised rubbish cleanup days as well, which are very important. And the mudlarks, which is the group I'm in that does bird surveys. There's 2 mudlark groups. There's one that operates in the lower part from near that boat wharf, boat jetty thing, and there's one further way up high at Croydon Park area. Mud crabs have been around for 20 years, and really the aim of the mud crabs is trying to turn some of the Cooks River back to what it was. So they do a lot of planting and revegetating there. And we'll see that has been really beneficial and brought a lot more wildlife, particularly birds. This is some planting going on. This is actually not on a mud crab sting, but on a mudlark's bird survey. One of the people in both groups is retired botanist Doug Benson, and he's looking after one of these areas here. This is a Marrickville Golf Course. And Marrickville Golf Course are quite on side with revegetating certain parts there between the greens. So there's a lot of revegetation work here going on. That's just part of it, a small part of what's called the 17th tee. And already we're seeing golden whistlers and things returning into that more bushy parts of that redevelopment there. And here's the mudlarks there on a bird survey. The mudlark group I've been doing do 2 surveys. Once a month, one goes upstream, and then the next month one goes downstream. So there's photos of some of the participants there. You can see quite a healthy number of people come along. We're talking about 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning when we start, depending on whether it's daylight saving. And I'll just mention here one of the real key people in the Cooks River Valley Association was Jennifer Newman, who died too early last year. I'd often meet her on the river and have a chat, a friendly talk about the tawny frogmouths. She was a proud Wiradjuri woman and an academic, but really she was a storyteller. And that's a funeral there, funeral service on the river at, of course, Gough Whitlam Park. Very well attended. So a few river scenes. And I did say kayaks come back. This is Wolli Creek settlement here, not the creek, the town. And you can see it's these high-rise towers. And then looking further downstream, Kale Park on the right, Temporary Reserve on the left, and then more high-rise towers down near the airport there further down. Now, I'm talking about some of the nasty things, pollution. And look at this poor pelican. This broke my heart when I saw this. The pelican there picking up a metal bottle or something and then having a look at it and then rejecting it. Not very good. And then this is what the river was like in these upstream parts early on. A lot of rubbish caught here. And it come down in flood and get caught in the mangroves and just sit there. And this is where a lot of the cleanups are done by the mud crabs. They go along and clean it all up, or wear gumboots and things. Also, there's river cleaning up done by the River Canoe Club downstream. And sometimes you see debris like this caught on trees. Animal life, turtles in the river and in things like the wetlands, particularly the wetlands of Cup and Saucer Creek and Tempe there. That stingray is a very rare creature I saw washed up on the river there, quite high up near Ewan Park. There are stories about a seal coming up the river, but I've never actually seen one myself. You do get eels, and this is a possum here that's grown too fat and burst out of its possum box. Mullet on the top left there, there's a lot of mullet come up when the tides are right, the season's right. And an echidna, I saw this one time at Tempe Wetlands, and I couldn't believe it, an echidna there. The thought is that it was probably one that people had caught from the bush and let go there. So you wouldn't expect an echidna to be around. But next we're going to have a look at the birds there. These are little coot babies there. And I think their mother's the only thing that finds them attractive. They're not the most beautiful little baby chicks there. We raised coots common along the river and in the wetlands. Dusky moor-headed common there. A whole lot of chicks there. And these chicks are a bit more attractive, I think. Purple swamp hens. I think name has gone back to purple swamp hen for these. They were purple swamp hens. Then they became Australian swamp hens, and now they're back to purple swamp hens, I think. They breed along the river too. The herons there, white-faced herons on the bottom right are very common. Nankeen night herons are probably common, but you don't see them because they're very secretive birds. Here's some white-faced herons. I think this is courtship behaviour. The striated heron, which I think the name might have changed this now. It was the mangrove heron, became the striated heron. I think it's now the little heron, but I'm not 100% sure. But you still use the old name. These are great birds here. They don't like people quite often. They fly away as quickly as they can or hide. But if you watch them sometimes, and sometimes you can sit down and just watch them fish, they're very successful. And when they see something, they lunge with this incredibly stretchy neck that they've got. And they catch little fish. Sometimes they catch big fish. And they breed along the river too. And here's a nest here in the mangroves. This nest wouldn't have been possible while the dam was there because there were no mangroves. 2 chicks. And there's a nankeen night heron there in typical habitat, hiding away during the day because they normally roost during the day, sleep. Cormorants, all the 4 cormorants of Sydney are here. The little pied, the pied cormorant, the little black cormorant. The little black cormorant, they're in large numbers. They're the ones that are social cormorants. They often hunt together. Bottom right is a great cormorant with a nice fish. There's a great cormorant there. And A lot of this vegetation on the side of the river is important for these birds. They like to sit in a tree to dry their wings out. Little pied cormorant. There's a great cormorant here that's caught an eel by the looks and had trouble with it, but they struggle to get them down. Very persistent. And the relative of the cormorant, which is the darter. And the darter is sometimes called the snake bird because its body goes under the water and only its head sticks out like a snake. But they have this very distinctive pointed beak. They don't have the little hook of cormorant, and they spear their food. Beautiful plumage on their backs. The male is dark, the female is a bit lighter on the chest. There's a fish that's speared. Little fish, they can sort of flick it off their bills and throw it up in the air and catch it and swallow it. Bigger fish, they have to take it to land, and then they detach the fish from their bill and then they eat it. Ducks and teals, we have the range of these two. Pacific black ducks, chestnut teals, there's also grey teals, made ducks, which used to be called wood ducks, and then made geese, but now made ducks, I think. Pelicans, that's on that pollution boom there, and there's a couple of cormorants as well. Often we see these, they just turn up in big numbers of half a dozen sometimes, and then you don't see them for a few months. And parrots, a lot of parrots on the parks on the side there, red-rumped parrot and a corella. I think that's the long-billed corella. Little corellas, they're big numbers. They could have a flock of 100 or so. And the little corellas, a lot of them along the river, they seem to have this great sense of humour. They like to have fun activities, a bit like their relatives, the galahs. They like to do fun things too. And cockatoos, the yellow-tailed black cockatoos are more visitors. They come in, they there's some food. They don't stay long, and they're not in big numbers. Whereas these ones are in big numbers, like the little corellas. There can be flocks of 50 or so of these. The yellow-tailed, the sulphur-crested cockatoo. And there are old trees along the side of the river that have hollows. That's very important for these birds nesting. Lorikeets, lots of lorikeets on the river. Down the bottom right, there's two bus lorikeets. They're visitors when the food is right. The rainbow lorikeets are there all the time. And they too use hollows for nesting. There's also boxes there which they can use. Bus lorikeet here. As I said, when the food is right, we see these for a few months. Eastern rosellas. You always see a few of these in our bird surveys. Eating grass seeds. King parrots the same. I think there's more of these birds returning to the river compared to, say, 20 years ago. Big birds, a lot of these on the side of the river, the trees there, female, and they nest in the mangroves or nearby. And their relatives, the oriole, plenty of these on the river too. These are seasonal birds, they come and go. They're coming back about now, and you hear their oriole call. They're a bit like a fig bird, except they've got that pink bill. And pigeons now, of course, there's the feral pigeons there, the rock doves and the spotted doves, but also we have the native crested pigeons, and they've come back into the urban areas in a big way in the last 20 or 30 years, I think. White-headed pigeons, we see these occasionally, not often. And top-knot pigeons, you don't see them on the ground, but you do see them flying over. This is part of a flock of 20 or so flying over, and they always look like they're very purposeful flying. They're going in a certain area. On the grass, marsh lapwings. Now, these birds don't really build a nest. They just plonk their eggs down the grass somewhere and then defend that area very strongly. Grebes. We see grebes in the river from time to time, not all the time, but fairly often. And this is an Australasian grebe. This is one you can see with chicks. They're beautiful little chicks. This one here had nested in the cup and saucer wetlands. And they nest on a floating island, which they can move around. And there's a different grebe, that's a hoary-headed grebe there that was on the river on one of the bird surveys. So you get these, they're much less common. Butcherbirds, lots of butcherbirds on the side of the river, feeding its young. Gulls and terns, silver gulls come up the river quite often. Caspian terns come up occasionally, always just one flying. And of course, tawny frogmouths. These are the birds that got me into bird watching and bird photography, I think. These amazing animals, so curious, the young. Quite a lot of nests along the river of these. So camouflaged there where they want to hide. And the young, you can see the adult there on the right is pretending to be asleep. But the chick on the left there, wide awake and very curious the world that's coming to. Two chicks there and an adult. And we have kingfishers too, as well as the kookaburra, which of course is the biggest kingfisher. There seems to be a lot more sacred kingfishers on the river these days. And I think they should come to the river during their winter as they migrate away from their breeding areas. They normally go to the mangroves, and that's where they live off these things, mud crabs. So there's plenty along the river there. They seem to do pretty well, except they're competing a bit with the noisy miners who try and drive them away. Beautiful birds, but it's worth, when you're walking along the river, to keep a lookout at the vegetation by the side of the river for kingfishers, sacred kingfishers. There are reports of azure kingfishers, but I've never actually seen one myself. Honey eaters, yes. These are the honey eater species that I've got here, a red wattlebird and noisy miners. We don't see much of the traditional, like New Holland honey eaters. Now, both of these are honey eaters, the red wattlebird. Quite a lot of these on the river. There's an unusual one, a white-plumed honey eater. These come probably part of the migration, I think, when these honey eaters migrate. And I did mention noisy miners. There being lots of these, especially in the parklands. They're really well suited to the parklands there. And they're a nuisance to the other birds. There's one pestering some kookaburras. And they pester here a currawong. But these are one of the birds that the noisy miners have driven away. But due to this work the mud crabs have done, they did this planting, what's called the Ford Street Bridge, footbridge, a bit down from the boat harbour. They did all this planting there, and Doug Benson, who's written a book about the Cooks River original vegetation, he was in charge of the planting, and he said no eucalypts, just this sort of scrubby vegetation, and that's been going very successfully now, been extended a bit, and now these fairy wrens have turned up. So it's good habitat, and it's brought these little birds back, and they can hide in this vegetation well away from the noisy miners and the currawongs and things. It's really good to see those there. Welcome swallows, plenty of these along the river hunting for insects, particularly after the lawn is mowed in the golf course or over the water. They set up their nests, their mud nests, under the bridges quite often, I think the road bridges. And there's some mid-air refueling going on. There's some young being fed, I think. And we have the beautiful Australian white ibis there. Beautiful birds along the river there that forage. Unfortunately, they've got a bit of a bad press in recent years. But when the rain comes, there they are in one of the sporting fields there, trying to find worms and other things there to eat. And their relative, the spoonbill, not as nearly as common as the ibis, but they're along the river. We often see them in the surveys, just usually one at a time. Egrets, quite a few egrets we see along the river from time to time. Great egret, a little egret. Red-browed finches, in places where there's vegetation they can hide because they live on the grass seeds and stuff. And then as soon as some bigger bird comes, they just all scurry away into the vegetation. Unfortunately, that vegetation they hide is often lantana. And now some unusual birds that we get, the one-offs on the bird surveys. Surprisingly, leaden flycatcher. Raptors, this is a grey brown goshawk. These fly up and down the river from time to time. Peregrine falcon, a rare visitor there. You can see it's got a nice little chicken leg in its pigeon leg in its mouth. There's any feathers were flying off. This is probably what the first peregrine falcon I ever saw. High up near the couple of sorts of wetlands there on top of the electricity pylon. So they're occasional visitors. Ospreys, these were quite common during the COVID lockdown when I could walk down the lower parts of the river. There'd be an osprey often hunting for fish down near Tempe Reserve or a little bit further downstream. That bird, I think, has now become a breeding pair and set up a nest close to the airport. Still seem to be doing quite well. And these are the rare ones as well. Owls, I've only ever seen this one boobook owl at Marrickville Golf Course hiding in a tree. That was brought to our attention by all these noisy miners. Okay, crazy. And one powerful owl on the side of the river there, again, sheltering away from the noisy miners. I only ever seen one of these in the area. Spangled drongos, occasionally you see those. White-throated needletails are pretty common. They're a sort of a swift-type bird. You often see a flock of 30 or 40 of these really high up, and they've got this very distinctive swift-like appearance. Black-faced cuckoo shrikes, a bit more common perhaps around the golf course area. Sometimes you see these. This is at Marrickville Golf Course, a bower, and nearby we found a bower bird. That's probably an immature male there, I think, that had set up that bower. Magpie larks, the mudlarks bird group is named after these birds. They're sometimes called peewees, sometimes called mudlarks, sometimes called magpie larks. That's one of their nests. They're built under the footbridge near the sugar mill a few years ago. An unusual place to build a nest, but there you go. Nature finds a way. There they are, the mudlark or magpie lark. That's a more typical nest. Just think how many billfuls of mud it would take to build a nest like that, and then it gets washed away, so they don't use it the next season. They're going to start from scratch again. And there's a bit later, there's the one under the bridge there. You can see it's got a few chicks, so it's done okay. Woolly wagtails, plenty of these along the river, and they're doing well in the urban setting. They build their nests quite often. They seem to build a nest very close to the magpie lark nest. I don't know why. Perhaps it's mutual protection, but you often see them just a few metres apart. Magpies breed along the river. A rare bird, this is a cup and saucer wetlands there, a buff-banded rail. And of course our cuckoos, these are just starting to return now. Channel-bill cuckoos. And at the end of one of the surveys, some of us witnessed the cuckoo here. It was a currawong nest, and it's got an egg there which it swallows that egg or eats that egg and replaces it with one of its own. And the Pacific coral, another big cuckoo. These ones parasitise the red wattlebirds. The female on the right there with that Morse's call, and male on the left. Now, some people know that I'm a fungi aficionado, so a few mushrooms. You don't get much along the river. You get a few stinkhorns here and there, and these cosmopolitan things, ink caps. These, if you watch them after a day or so, they turn into this mushy, inky mess. Now, Wolli Creek next. Now, Wolli is thought to be the Aboriginal word for a campsite. So Lower Wolli would have been really good for camping. 1931, the East Hills line went in. 1983, the Wolli Creek Preservation Society started their campaign to stop the M5 motorway from wrecking the valley, this last important bushland remnant. Now, by 1992, the M5 had gone up to the end of the bushland in Wolli Creek, which is the bushland remnant, and then a compromise was worked out, which was the M5 tunnel. So the bushland remnant has been preserved, which is really good. 2003 thereabouts, Wolli Creek Regional Park was started, and a lot of additional bits and pieces have been added over the years. 2010, about 50% of its current size. Now it's a fair bit bigger than that. So it's a regional park. People can still walk their dogs through there, but it does have conservation status. An aerial view there showing Wolli Creek, and we'll just have a look into it a bit. But first, the Wolli Creek Preservation Society does these important things like lobbying, education, bird and flying fox surveys, and some of these things like the flying fox survey. They have all these groups around the perimeter of the park, all on the one night, counting how many flying foxes leave, with multiple people at each spot with little clickers or something to do the counting. And they also, but as part of the education thing, they have a bat picnic at Torella Reserve where all these kids come and they paint their faces as bats and so on. So really getting the whole community involved, which is really good. And there's a lot of bush care groups that they've organised too in different parts along the valley there, weeding and planting new trees and things. And they do interpretive bushwalks and really also interpretive kayak trips with using the kayaks from the River Canoe Club, which is very close to the junction of Wolli Creek. They do kayak and canoe trips up the lower part of Wolli Creek. There's their website there, very active group. So this is the upper part of the regional park now. Bexley Road on the left, Hartel Law Road on the right there, and the railway line goes right down on the south side of the creek. You can see a big open chunk there in the middle. That's called Ilura, part of the park there. There's a few other incursions in the park. That is all part of the regional park, but it's that's one area that the Wolli Creek Preservation Society done a fair bit of planting in that open area there. So the bushland, some of it's very good, some of it's been degraded with lots of weeds, particularly lantana and privet, asparagus. This is Hartel Law Road here, close to Bardwell Park Station, and there's present work going on there to put the path that goes down the Two Valleys track, that goes down the valley. There's present work there putting the track under the bridge, which will be really good. You won't have to go up to the road and cross that. Further down, quite nice waterfalls after rain. Quite nice bushland here, beautiful angophores. This is the middle section here, Girraween Park on the left, and goes down to Torella Reserve on the right, another big open area. This is probably the best bushland, really, this middle section, I think. There's Torella Reserve there, an aerial photo. And you can see how close it is to the city. You can see the city buildings there. Torella Reserve is part of the regional park, and national parks recently have put in extra picnic tables and other things there. Made it a really nice place. Nanny Goat Hill is part of just next to Torella Reserve on the upstream side. And this is a very famous place because it was the Battle of Nanny Goat Hill back in the 1960s when the government wanted to remove the hill and turn it into those bits of Sydney Airport that stick into Botany Bay. They thought they could use all the rocks there. But there was a big local campaign, and you can see some of the people there. This is a video that's on YouTube, part of This Day Tonight, I think, back from the day. Quite interesting to see it there, how so many average people were involved and the government backed off. Looking downstream there, that big tower thing on the right there, that's pretty close in the middle, that's the ventilation shaft for the M5 tunnels there. So unfiltered pollution is spread out from that. Luckily, there's no tower, high-rise building towers nearby. So this is the last part of Wolli Creek Regional Park there, getting close to the junction. And that's this last part, Torella Reserve on the left. That thing that crosses it on the right there, that's what's called the sluice, which is the Southwest Ocean Outfall Sewer, the major sewer line that heads out towards Malabar. There's the lower part there. That's on the path between Torella Reserve and the roads that go to Torella Station, so used by a lot of people. There's a little bit of a dam here. with the fish trap, fish ladder that allows the fish to go up there upstream. And that's high water there after rain. And this was the site where the famous Kingsgrove slasher was caught back in the 1950s. The Kingsgrove slasher terrorised the area by going into probably hundreds of people's houses, not slashing up people, but slashing up clothing, and then watching people sleeping and then just disappearing. And took quite a few years for him to be caught, but back in those days, people were terrorised. So he was caught by a police operation very close to that bridge there. Look at some of the animal life. A lot more things like little lizards here, skinks, bigger lizards, blue tongues, Jackie dragons and some more skinks, water dragons, red-belly black snake. That's the only snake I've seen, red-belly blacks. They're quite common, but I haven't seen any brown snakes or other snakes there. Bird life, cockatoos, kookaburras, brush turkeys are along the track there. Not in big numbers, not like you see in the North Shore, but I'm sure they'll come. All your cormorants and egrets there. Unusual birds, this is a white-necked heron, a rare visitor. Nankeen night heron there. I think this is an emerald dove, a rare bird to the park. Just happened to see it. And we do have honey eaters. There's a lot of New Hollands, big numbers of New Hollands. Yellow-faced honey eaters are common as well. Spinebills are common. Grey fantails are pretty common. Golden whistlers are common as well. Eastern robins, eastern yellow robins, some of those. Reed warblers, there's a wetland area there that Hartlepool Bridge, and there's a lot of reeds there, so a lot of reed warblers. Rarer bird, a monarch. Spangled drongos, there was a family of these on the river at one stage there. Oh, sorry, on Wolli Creek. And the rufous fantail, very nice to see these. And of course, fairy reds, the superb fairy red, but there's also the variegated fairy red. Now, these are a recent turn up. They weren't around back in the last century when there were a lot of bird surveys being done. There's books of birds of Wolli Creek books that you can get, and they don't list the variegated fairy red. So they've only turned up recently, and there's a few flocks along the creek. Silver eyes, plenty of them. A rarer bird than I lure, I think a pipit. Lots of these spotted pardalotes. And of course, there's 20 frogmouths too, but they're a bit harder to find because it's a bit bushier. Cockatoos. And there's bowers as well. I've seen a couple of bowers, but I've never seen a bowerbird, but this indicates that they are there. And there's predators, goshawks, and you can see from this there's a pair of them. One's a juvenile, I think, and so there's goshawks breeding in the area. Beautiful birds. But occasionally, this is an amazing thing, this is up near Bexley North Station, white-bellied sea eagle with a fish being attacked by the usual thing, a raven there, harassing it. So unusual to see one of these so far upstream. Black-shouldered kite. And of course, there's the flying foxes, lots of flying foxes, the big flying fox cam. There's one there with a baby attached. The babies, you normally find these born about October, and then you get photos like this in December, November, December. Plenty of these grey-headed flying foxes. Part of the camp. And where they are, they make a lot of noise, these flying fox camps. But they're far enough away from houses so they don't disturb people. And it's thought that the ones that were at the Botanic Gardens moved down to this area, perhaps amalgamated with another camp there. Sometimes they all disappear, go somewhere else. Then a few months later they turn up again. But these ones seem to be there most of the time, so they must be able to get food reasonably close. And the bat surveys indicate the number's sort of like 8,000 is a typical number, 10,000, a lot of them. One with a baby, one flying with a baby there. And these turned up one particular year, about 3 years ago. somebody spotted these, a different flying fox, and these ones prefer to huddle together, little red flying foxes, and they're probably about 20 or 30. They didn't stay that long, a few weeks. Insects, spiders, mites, slugs, and down the bottom right, a dung beetle, native dung beetle, millipedes, the robber fly. That's a much smaller fly. That's not a mushroom there, fungal gnat. And if you look underneath that orchid there, you can see a little spider sheltering under the orchid there. Now look at some of the vegetation. There's orchids. There are different sorts of green hood orchids. Quite a lot of them, quite often. Not so many of these achianthus. These will be out soon. Podiums, the hyacinth orchid. These occur in one spot that I know of, on some cliffs, these rock orchids. And Cymbidium suave. That's right at Girraween Park near the water fountain there. Beautiful. That should be out very soon. Some of the other vegetation. There's a lot of good native vegetation there. Ibertia. But also, as I said, quite a few weeds, particularly down in the waterway. Although down here, the tidal zone, it's not so bad. Mangroves and other trees along the Wolli Creek. And just the last bit here, we're looking at fungi, which is one of my favourite things that I photograph. And we'll just have a look at a range of the fungi that we get. These are Cortinarius, Mycena nargans, and rare sort of Mycena. Coal fungi, different sort of coal. They're russulas. Beautiful light blue interloper. So what's called earth tongues, little black clumps. These are one particular fungus that comes up just after a bushfire. And there was a bushfire in Wolli Creek a couple of summers ago. There was an ecological bird, and we got this fungus turning up, which is what you'd expect. This is a fungus on a fungus here. This mushroom has been parasitized by another fungus. The yellow one there is a parasite, quite a different fungus that's on the mushroom. And these are some of my favorites, these colourful wax caps. Beautiful, all very colourful. And the waxy feeling, if you touch them, they can be slimy and waxy. Quite a few of these under the moist parts of the rainforest bits of Wolli Creek. They don't come out every season. It's a bolete. These are all boletes. They have paws rather than gills. Boletes. And back to these colourful wax caps here. This particular species here only seems to occur so far in New South Wales at Wolli Creek Regional Park. It's the only place it's been found, but it does also occur in Tasmania, South Australia and Western Australia, but in very, very limited numbers. But we see it quite regularly in Wolli Creek, once we learnt the right places to look. Some more beautiful wax caps. Another nice one here with the distinctive orange gills. Another fairly rare one there. Beautiful red ones. This one here is undescribed, new to science. And just to finish off, a few slime molds. These slime molds are quite different to fungi. They're a separate kingdom. And there's probably several hundred species we get in Australia. Really unusual things, very tiny quite often, but bizarre. These are the bodies designed to spread their spores, because most of the time they're like little amoeba spread out in the wood, in the substrate there. They're really bizarre things, these slime molds. That's one on grass there. Funny, really strange sort of things, these slime molds. They only occur like this when they want to spread their spores, they amalgamate together. And I think that is it. So I'll just go back and turn my screen off.
And thank you, David, for a magnificent trip down the two valleys and the two creeks and covering everything from history to the birds to the fungi to the slime molds. Magnificent. So we'll open it up for questions. I hope there's or comments.
Yep.
Potentially a comment or two from a couple of the local champions over there. Peter, would you like to come and say hello to everybody?
You have to unmute himself.
Peter Stevens, would you like to pop in and say hello? And
there you go. I'll turn up in a minute.
okay, mate.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, Peter was at least one of the champions, if not any more the champion, because he stepped back a little bit, only a hint, I think, of the Wolli Creek Preservation Society.
Yes.
Yeah.
Strong, big player there.
A major force. Yeah.
Well, you also, whenever you mention me, you have to mention Deb as well, because
Of course, yeah.
I was actually wondering whether Deb was hiding behind your name on the.
She's also pulled back a fair bit, and she's out at pottery tonight, so she's
is she? Okay.
picking up her artistic side.
All right.
I've just had a biopsy on a skin cancer, so I'm looking pretty weird. I'm not sure if you can see me yet because I can't see who's visible.
Well, there's only a handful of us who have gone visible at this stage. Most people are
I'm
hiding.
supposed to be visible, but I haven't seen me visible on the screen. So
you are visible now, Peter.
okay.
Nice being.
Well, I have one correction to make for David.
Yep, sure.
When you refer to the lovely map of the Two Valley Trail, that was actually one of the Wolli Creek Preservation Society's efforts, but we did work with the Cooks River Valley Association and some other groups as well at the time. But yeah, that was a really important piece of work because the creation of the Two Valley Trail in 2007, and that using that concept to promote Wolli Creek got a lot more people walking through the valley and got therefore a lot more support for making sure it was preserved.
Definitely, yes. Well agreed there. I think I downloaded the map from the Canterbury Council website, but I can't.
Well, may well do, because everybody wants in on everybody else's work these days, don't they? Because it's really good to get access to it.
Yeah.
But you know, I was amazed by the fungi photographs in Wolli, because I see fungi from time to time, but I've certainly not made the study of them that David has, and they are just fantastic. And I've never ever seen a slime mold, but I know about their weird behavior as a group of individuals suddenly coming together to form a mobile mass. They can actually move along. That's pretty amazing stuff.
You probably have seen a slime mold because the most common one is a yellowy thing that we often find on the ground, and it's known as the common name dog's vomit, or sometimes called the scrambled egg slime mold. So it does look like a bit of scrambled egg on the ground,
Right.
and it's just a patch like that, a really odd patch of scrambled egg, and you think, oh, the dog's vomited that up or something, but that's actually a slime mold, and that's a very common one that you might find in the grass or on the footpath or something like that.
I may well have seen it, David, but I didn't know what I was looking at.
But would love to have acknowledged your work, Peter, before you sort of just tune yourself out.
No, I'll take my my nose off the screen now.
You may if you wish, but by all means add stuff in. And I think we should ask Lydia to pop her head in and say hello from the other end, or from down the bottom end of Wolli Creek. And she's still on mute, but we'll listen to her or lip read her until she works out how to turn the speaker back on.
I'm just listening.
No corrections, Lydia, from your point of view?
No, I just amazed by the biodiversity, and there's always so much to learn, and there's all the the fighters and the warriors that fought for the valley, and the creativity, the connectivity of the valley. And I totally respect the effort and endeavors that they have put in. And and we'll take inspirations from them
Yeah.
to continue that work on the connectivity.
The wildlife along there is partly responsible, uh, along with me, for when I led a bird watching tour into the Tempe wetlands once. And certain Jan Mohandas, who's supposedly an expert on orchids, wanted to learn about birds. And I swapped skills with him. I said, you teach me about orchids and I'll teach you about birding. Well, he hasn't stopped photographing birds ever since. So we'll put it down to the Tempe wetland. And Elizabeth, I'm glad you made it. Sorry if you tried to use the hyperlink that Judy sent out. When I realized that you were coming, I had to try to get a message to you. Do you want to come in and say hi to people?
You can't see me, but thank you very much for sending the right link.
Are
'Cause we
you
were-
wearing your pajamas like Helen, are you?
No, I've just put a bit of tape over the camera so people can't see me.
Oh, you shame
But
on
that
you.
was fascinating. And one of our off members was going to lead a walk in the Two Valleys this year, but she had to swap that to take over from another leader at Simo's Beach. So maybe next year, off will have Oatley Flora and Fauna. We'll have a walk in the Two
Okay.
Valleys. So that's going to be very valuable. And I've shared the link. But this is being recorded, I believe, so
It is.
on YouTube. So we can watch it later. Thank you.
You certainly can. And you miss as I think you missed the first, at least a third, I think, Liz.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, I'm sorry. I tried to
No,
get
that's
it to
okay.
you earlier than that.
That's all right. No, I didn't look in. I didn't come back to the computer.
Yeah. Oh, Liz turned herself off.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. That's fine. But what about questions for Dave? Dave, there's a couple of birding questions. The birder in me
Yeah, if I can
floats this, and I know
Yeah.
Liz may want to add things here, or if Liz has got Graham nearby, Graham might. The white-headed, the long-billed corella has got to be an aviary escapee.
Yes, there's a lot of them at Centennial Park there, mixed up with the other corellas there.
Yeah,
Find
yeah,
out maybe
yeah.
10% of them are
The only
long-billed.
place that I know that you can get them both on a regular basis was at one stage Parramatta Park.
Yes,
They occur at Centennial Park in the city.
yes.
The
Yeah.
long-bills too, do they, Liz?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Centennial
not
Park.
many, but I
Yeah.
think it probably did start off from a cage escapee, but I think they're now established, but certainly not in the numbers of the littles.
Yeah, well, the littles, I think, are refugees from drought too, aren't they? Many of them.
Um, they've certainly made themselves much at home.
They
All the
have.
inland towns like Orange and
Yeah.
Goulburn, then the trees in the parks are just full of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, they've found somewhere to nest apparently and are doing very well.
I've made a comment in the chat bits that you may or may not have seen yet, but the white-headed pigeons are one of those birds that have expanded their range southwards. And I sometimes suspect, and your experts around might really pull me up on this, that because they're fruit-eating birds, they're actually benefiting by privet, camphor laurel, etc.
Yes, perhaps.
They certainly have. I mean, they used to eat rainforest plants, but we knocked out so many of the rainforest species.
We don't see them a lot on our bird surveys in Wolli at around Heart of the Law area, but we do have an awful lot of privet and camphor laurel.
Yeah,
So they may be spreading it, but I'm not seeing them.
Yeah,
right.
I've seen one at Torella Reserve further down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's odd. You don't see them in big numbers.
Now the top knots, however, love feeding on the flowering and or fruiting cabbage tree palms.
Yes, and some of the other palms as well. They seem to feed on. I've only ever seen one, I think, on that's landed that's actually actively feeding in the inner west.
Okay, so mostly
you
you're
see them
seeing them
flying
move
over.
through. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
just flying over. Very determined looking.
I have seen top mott pigeons once over the last decade or so in Wolli, and we are starting to see the occasional cabbage tree palm turning up. So
Right.
maybe they're a spreader of seed from that.
Well, the cabbage tree palm, of course, was native right through the area.
Yeah, but it virtually disappeared in Wolli.
Yeah, because we
We
chopped
made
them
them into
down
hats.
and used the trunks for building old homes
Oh yeah, and their leaves
and
make
used the
hats.
fronds for clothing and hats
Hats.
and
Mm.
yeah. Um, yeah, the keep an eye on the top knots. If you see them staying around and feeding, you might also see white goshawks or grey goshawks, white form
Mm.
or whatever, because they like to dive bomb them and eat them.
Mm.
Yeah, we've seen grey goshawks at the landing lights wetland. There's often, or there's not often one, there's occasionally one around there, part of its territory. You don't see it all the time, but
If
maybe,
at landing lights you've got grey goshawk.
yes. Yes, just one, a single one there.
Well,
And
that's
you
not
also get kestrels and black-shouldered kites. They're quite often more common, and sometimes swamp harriers too. But I haven't seen a swamp harrier for a fair while now.
yeah. Ah, oh. You didn't give much credit to the wonderful cleanup of Alexandria Canal, Dave.
No, that was, and there's bank rehabilitation work that's gone on there too. So,
Yeah,
and I could have mentioned that history book is on the River Dreams book was very good for talking about the history of the whole Wolli Creek catchment. And it mentions this scheme, this crazy scheme to turn all these rivers into canals. And they dredged out the Alexandria Canal there. And they're going to put a canal up, right up the Cooks River and link it to the Parramatta River and then link it down to the Georges River, I think. Um, Pretty crazy ideas, but that's what they thought they were doing in those days there. They were
yeah,
trying to turn that area into the Birmingham of the South.
yeah.
Then the railways came along.
There was once upon a time that I thought I would take out a mining lease on the Alexandria Canal.
Yeah, at Tempe Reserve, there, that's where they've naturalised the bank there. So one of those concrete ditch type banks has been dismantled and replaced with sloping locks and things. And they've done a good job on that. That's quite nice. Just opposite the airport.
Right. Okay. Valerie, you're a resident of the area. You want to make any comments on it? Either you've sent Valerie to sleep or she's trying to find the Yahoo, Valerie. She obviously is in her pajamas.
We may not have found the audio and video buttons at the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah, that's the other possibility.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think you can override everybody's settings there as the host, can you, Ian?
Usually can. Oh, hold on, let me see.
You can turn people off, I know that.
Yeah, there's been times
I
when
don't think you can turn us on. That would be very intrusive.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think you can
I
only
think they
turn
would.
people off.
You'd hope they wouldn't let you do that.
No,
Um,
no, I don't think you can, Ian.
no, but there's been times when I have seen the list of participants.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
hold on,
Yeah,
let's
all
go to
sorts of
that.
ways of
I've
getting
got,
that
I've
up.
got them now. Hold on. So
All right. No worries. It's all right. Now, are there any questions beyond me asking, prattling on about the birds? I could have prattled on about the history too, but
Well,
I
don't stop.
behaved
Don't
myself.
stop. Don't
No.
hold back.
I
Yeah.
will be leading a couple more NPA walks in that area again as we're heading in.
Ah,
Oh, Valerie, well,
Valerie's there.
did you wake up?
Izzy came to my rescue.
Hey
I was
guys.
trying to press the screen.
Oh, who came to your rescue?
Me. Hi guys. I'm Auntie's
He
niece.
rescued me.
I heard this
Valerie,
running noise.
Valerie, it's so good to have your niece living with you at the moment, isn't it?
We
Ah,
wish we
well,
had one.
yeah.
Oh dear. I've been here a decade now. Am I still on? And
Yeah, you are
Yes, we can all hear
talking.
you.
We can't see you, but we can now hear
I
you.
can turn a picture on.
oh,
Yeah, the video wouldn't work. I think it's your webcam or something. Yeah, so it's
am
on.
I on now? Can
You are on
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I just fixed the video.
Well, I came here a decade ago to this area, and it's just been such a delight getting to know the two valleys and the people in the valleys and who've looked after the valleys for so long, and learning about the valleys. You know, I do these walks and text, say, Peter and Deb, or talk to Dave about it and say, what's this about? Where's that? And all these questions and bits of history in that. It's just such a big discovery. It's a precious, especially the Wolli Creek is such a precious little bit of bushland, I think, with all its wildlife. And to think that Nanny Goat Hill could have been turned into rock for a third runway is just appalling. You know?
Indeed.
So there's so much more always to learn about it, its background, its history as well, recent history as well as its nature, but particularly the nature, of course. So,
Yeah.
So thanks, Dave, for the pictures and for
You're welcome.
wonderful walks as well.
Now, before everybody leaves, I'm going to actually ask everybody to turn their microphones on, if you don't mind, and practice with your voices wishing by singing happy birthday to both Liz and Dave, who have both have their birthday today.
We're honoured indeed.
So, shall I begin? Because I've got a lousy voice.
Who else?
Not just you, eh?
Oh, no, well, not just me. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to... Oh, what you hopeless. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, David and Liz. Happy birthday
dear
to
both.
you. And I hope that's being recorded still, Ian.
Yeah, too right.
Thank you, Dave.
People will
Thanks,
watch
Dave.
the recording.
Great.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I didn't expect that.
Sorry about that, Liz.
You won't ask
No one deserves that. I think, Ian, it's been a longish night after we finally got a whole pile of people in. I was furiously trying to send the updated sections. I'll talk to Judy about sending out the wrong link. But thanks very much, Dave. That was well worth doing. And yes, we will be putting on some walks. The next talk will be, hopefully on the right link, Elaine, who had to leave to take her 80-year-old dad out for dinner in Melbourne. And she's going to make a workshop talk on using a mobile phone as a camera. And
yes, yay!
And if you haven't seen Elaine's photography, you should, because what she does with a mobile phone makes most of us photographers embarrassed with how terrible we can be with our big cameras. She too has promised, after she gives a talk, to take a field trip to actually get you practicing with your mobile phones. So look out for that one. And I'm going to say thanks again, Dave, and thank you, Ian, for hosting, and good luck.
Brian, can we assume you will send around a link to the recording?
Ian will have that recording in roughly a month.
Yeah, usually.
And the link will be available on the NPA's own Facebook homepage.
Yeah, I'll usually send it to Gary.
And what we'll do, Ian, once you get the hyperlink, we'll make sure that it goes out to all the branch members.
Yeah, all the participants, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Those links are pretty easy to find using the search tool in YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Just look for National Parks Association.
Yep. A National Parks Association search on YouTube.
All right. Well, I will stop the recording. You'll hear that first, and then it's time to say good night.
And then you turn us all off.
We could say good night first of all.
Good night
to everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dave. Bye.